There we go. Welcome everyone to the 7th session of the EVCx week. So I'm going to share my screen and get us kicked off here. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. So as I mentioned, this is the EVCx Forum. This is our 7th session of 10 online sessions that we'll be holding. My name is Kevin Bond. I'm the manager of clean energy strategy at Eversource Energy. And together with Dave McKendry, we are your EVCx Forum venue executives. And we'll be hosting this month's session. Just as a reminder, CS Week is the world's largest utility customer service conference in its 48th year, where annually utility delegates from over 275 utilities come together to share best practices via workshops and exhibits and keynote speakers. Just as a reminder, our next in-person will be on April 29th to May 3rd in Fort Worth, Texas, and I am really personally looking forward to seeing everyone in person there. Just as a reminder of kind of where we've been and how we got to where we are with the EVCx Forum, it was really conceived as a conversation in 2018. Had its first in-person session in 2019, and then as COVID came, it turned into more of an online sharing exercise. But fortunately, the last 2 years, we've been able to regain the in-person event, and then we hold 9 monthly virtual events to supplement the content. And that content is really driven by our advisory panel. So I'll just mention them by name: Cameron Freeberg from Austin Energy, Mike Wenslaff from BC Hydro, Britt Reichborn-Kenrud from Con Ed, Kelsey Gridley from Duke, my friend and colleague Sean Tully from Eversource, Andrea Neusser from Hydro One, France Lampron from Hydro Quebec, Pete Westlake from Orlando Utilities Commission, Jennifer Wolf from SoCal Edison, and Nadia Elmalak from Xcel Energy. So these folks have put together great content for this year, and we've been working on our content for next year. So we look forward to finalizing some of the topics that we'll be talking about next year and getting those rolling as well. But the advisory panel is hard at work at that, so we thank them for all of that. This group really is at the nexus of a whole lot of world-changing shifts. So we're in the midst of a huge shift in one of the biggest sectors of the economy. That's the transportation sector, and it hinges on us, the utility sector. All that comes together for us finding solutions for our customers, and we share our best practices for transportation electrification in this EVCx Forum. So that's where all this boils down to. The objectives of our group, of course, are to share our transportation electrification customer experiences with each other, our best practices. We have colleagues from across the country who are all in different stages of our journey towards transportation electrification. So we have the opportunity in this industry to be able to share this best practices with each other. It's really kind of a unique industry in that way, that we're in competition in some ways, but in other ways we serve our discrete service territories, so we're able to share in that way. And we really want to be able to advance and enable the future of electric transportation in our service territories and across all of the customers who we serve. To that end, this is a sample of the registrants who participate in the EVCx Forum. In my opinion, it's the best of the best of both the utilities in North America and our partner companies who help support transportation electrification. I think the numbers speak for themselves about the number of customers we serve collectively as a group, and the territories that we serve, but really a strong group of utilities and partner companies at the forefront of this transformation. Just a visual representation of the service territories that our utilities cover. And really, as I mentioned before, it's north to south and coast to coast and across North America. So a really comprehensive and impressive group. As far as who attends the EVCx Forum, so it's everything from executives to analysts, as reflected in how all of our utilities are handling this transition. You'll see representation from strategy, from operations, from IT, from sales, from the customer facing side of our businesses. So really, it's no longer sort of a niche part of any utility, but it's really grown to all parts of the utility are involved in this transformation. And what are our members interested in? Well, of course, everything having to do with transportation electrification, but there are so many parts to it, right? So everything from who are the customers we're serving, the billing and payment side, the customer facing side, the customer experience when it comes to charging. Many of us are involved in the development of incentive and infrastructure programs. And of course, there's many approaches to that. What are the challenges and opportunities that we all face? What are some of the future for some of us and the now for others of us, as far as V2G and V2X go? So it really runs the gamut. As I said before, our advisory panel is really helping us focus what these conversations will look like month to month. But we're certainly, as a group, interested in all of these parts. And I think our conversation today will touch on many of these and how technology can help facilitate many of these things. So just as I said before, we're in session 7 of 10. We have 3 more after this in September, October, and November. Coming up, we'll talk about what those are at the end of the session. To your right is just a few shots of our last in-person meeting that was in Charlotte. Good looking group on the bottom there. And I look forward to being part of that session in Fort Worth next year. All of this, of course, is made possible by our sponsors, Energy Hub, Smart eMobility, and Visa. So many thanks to those 3 companies. And without further ado, we get to, the main course here, which is a conversation with Deepak Garg, the CEO and founder of Smart eMobility and SEW, and Paul Lau, the CEO and general manager of SMUD. And today they're going to be having sort of a fireside chat, if you will, talking about, the topic is supercharged change on the grid, energy providers' arsenal to mitigate risk and manage EV growth. But the conversation will really focus on sort of what are the technology platforms that we as utilities can take advantage of, and how can we take advantage of them, and what are the challenges and opportunities of taking advantage of them to really accelerate transportation electrification in our service territories. So I think you're in for a great conversation. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Deepak to introduce himself and kick the conversation off. So thank you so much for joining us, Deepak, and take it away.
Hope everybody is able to see the screen.
Yes.
First of all, thank you, both David and Kevin, and the full EVCx Forum. It's such a great, audience at the same time, the great advisory board you guys put it across. I love this topic myself and Paul getting on this forum. This is our favorite topic. I think this is the industry favorite topic. It's a global topic we cannot avoid, and I'm very, very excited along with Paul, the leader I admire a lot, the person who know from end to end. And it's great to see in the energy and utilities a great leader like Paul, who understand customer, who understand grid, who understand technology. Paul, thank you for being on this forum, and we are going to be having, and I know I'm using we, but I know that I'm going to be learning a lot from you, as I learned a lot, by having all these conversations for years, So welcome on board, on this topic in this forum. Paul, you want to put any words on that, before I just give a context to the people, what is a smart eMobility and SEW we are doing, and then we get into the real good topics about what we actually executing also,
Great. Well, thank you so much, Deepak, for the invitation, and Kevin and David, and giving me an opportunity right here, today to kind of share SMUD's experience. I mean, what we're doing, what we're doing at SMUD to advance eMobility, but hopefully, answer some of the questions, that I think probably on a lot of our minds, at least share SMUD experience, what we do in those areas. And hopefully this is a forum that we all can learn from each other. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, everybody, from all the audience standpoint. Thank you for your time. And as we discussed, we will be definitely taking the Q&As once we kind of good reason discuss the enough topics. And please feel free in the meantime, if you have any question, you can put in the chat bot, in the chat box actually, for good reasons. And so I'll go quickly, just give an overview about what as a smart eMobility and SEW we are doing. And I think the most important thing is what we feel is, which is all of us seen, that is the eMobility is impacting end to end every area, irrespective of, we talk about service providers, doesn't matter the public, providers or the utilities or energy retailers or charge points in terms of the public charging and all, fleet operator, everybody, cities, communities, everybody's getting impacted because customers are buying EV. And I think we need to give the big credit to definitely the federal government, state government globally, promoting the clean energy, and in that context, everybody buying all the EV. But I know that I discussed with a lot of industry leaders, when everybody talking about EV penetration is going to be by 2030, we're going to have 30 or 40% more EV. Who's going to provide that electron to go and charge and drive this EV? Is the energy and utility companies. And I know that I've been very vocal about this. It's not Elon Musk have to think about what the next. I think it's for me, the Elon Musk is Paul and a lot of energy and utility executives who have to think about what grid is going to do, how the grid is going to manage. So this is really a time for all of us to make sure we are talking about the integrating everything together, because in all the mix, customer and the utilities are in the center of the nucleus. Everybody is outside. And if we are able to bring that together, utilities are, for good reason, have to manage the grid, irrespective of whatever the penetration of the EV is directly creating the invariable and a lot of infinite variability in the grid from asset standpoint, load standpoint, and all. And that's what we as a smart eMobility, we brought as a one single platform, software and hardware together to ensure that there's no ambiguity of who does what. You can leverage a platform end to end. And for that, you can think about, and I don't want to pick up all the topic, but everything, all that topics and all the areas, which is, doesn't matter if we talk about energy storage, when we talk about the intelligence from AI and the BI we are bringing in, we want to make sure the customer have the real time, every channel, irrespective of web or native mobile app or bot, they're able to connect the dots and they will able to see real time, they need to charge and not, they're charging today at home or at the fleet level, is creating the great instability. If it's creating a load, the system is able to take the control rather than we are going a traditional way and all. But this is where we feel integrating everything is the most important thing. And that's not going to be happen too much too further from today. It's happening today and we need to take care of as a mobility in the focus, customer as a focus, grid as a focus. And we talk about, we need to create a mirror image of grid 360 to customer 360. And this is the copyright of Paul, because Paul brought this the whole concept of grid 360 have to map to the customer 360, because customer creating the infinite load with a lot of variable, how the grid manage in real time through our AI and the data-driven platform. That's what we talk about smart eMobility. And when we talk about end-to-end platform and we talk about strategy on and the eMobility, it's not about we can just take the traditional way, let's put all the charger, let's control all the charger. It has to be properly planned. And plan required the grid understanding, the load understanding, customer understanding, making sure the affordability is in there. We need to make sure we have enough program for the customer to participate, enough education for the customer to do it. So it's pretty much bringing inclusivity and making everybody inclusive of that eMobility. Is not one party, it's not providers, it's not energy utilities, it's a customer, energy utilities, and everybody across the board. And it's very important, and I love the forum name is EVCx. It's very important customer in the center of that with the utilities. Customers getting every information end-to-end, integrating to them in every channel available to them. And it's proactive, it's not reactive. Customers getting the information, customer taking the decision, we are giving them the right rate plan, we are giving them the right information, and they're taking the decision to operate that. And that's the core of the core. We feel collectively working with the hundreds of utilities across the globe in 42 countries, touching billions of people. We learned that, and we want to keep applying that intelligence. And again, it's pretty much what Uber did, what Amazon did for the industry. One did for the automobile, for definitely for all of us. Another did for the retail, which is Amazon. We want to bring that true intelligence, the channel where convenient to the customer. Customer doesn't need to require to understand the platform. Platform understand that. It is better than the customer should say, I love the utilities mobile app. I love the utilities eMobility because it's so convenient. It's so easy for me to operate, better than Uber or better than the Amazon of the world. And for us, definitely we are talking about the mobility 101, doesn't matter home charging or we are talking about the fleet, but that day is there when we are going to have to take care of that pretty much our cars, our battery will provide the power which is required for the grid. And I don't want to go too deep, but this is what as a team we are doing with the multiple utilities globally, and I really fortunate to have a leader like Paul who believed in this vision long back and always been the part of this journey. And again, Paul loved the data, Paul loved about you, and a lot of utilities we are working. They love the data, they love the AI, they love integration, and this is what we are trying to deliver. So thank you guys. I don't want to talk too much about that, Paul. I want to jump now. When we see that, I know that I've covered enough about the topic, but when you see that, the eMobility continue to gain the momentum, and we talked about it, the cities, the utilities, the automobile company, all across creating the demand, very high demand, which is pretty much not as predictable it was before. How you feel, you envision the role of energy and utilities really spearheading the electric vehicle revolution across the board, and what strategy and initiatives you have to implement to prepare for this increased load which is coming to all of us, as a utility, because I count myself as a part of the utilities too, because we are the pretty much mirror image. So Paul, love to take your inputs on that.
Well, thank you so much, Deepak. I mean, it's always a pleasure to kind of listen to you talk and really talk about your vision about really how do you actually make the world a better place. Not just for utilities and the vendors, but more importantly for the customers, and how you always put customer at the forefront. So thank you. I mean, I think it is very interesting that you talk about the grid 360 and the customer 360, a term that I think that we use for about at least a decade now, right? And in terms of how is the utility transitioning into this clean energy future. And it's great to have companies like you really kind of putting your vision into action. Now you're putting first your SEW, what you're actually doing, working with utilities to better serve the customers, and now you're talking about smart eMobility, really which is one of the kind of major transitions I think for the electric industry, and I think for the world as a whole. So I think to answer your question, really, what do I see the utilities playing as a role in this transition. I think I absolutely agree with you. I think that the utility has to play a very pivotal role of this transition because, lack of a better word, right? The utility will be the one that will be enabling this technology transfer to basically move, from your combustion turbine engines now to a clean electric engine. And so, being the fuel provider, so one of the things that you have to do is that, well, how do you actually embrace this evolution or this transition? So just some context, I mean, for those of you maybe who's not aware of SMUD or the California EV experience, I think it's not surprisingly, California is probably one of the forefronts in terms of climate change policy. And, our California Air Resources Board on the scoping plan gave us a target of getting to 8 million electric vehicles by 2030. And so currently, I mean, for the California, congratulations, to the legislature and, all the OEMs and all the utilities coming on board, that, I think we hit 1.5 million electric vehicles already a few years ahead of the schedule. So just give you some context, SMUD's, I guess our share of the 8 million electric vehicles is about 320,000, electric vehicles that is going to be in the SMUD service territory. And today we have about 32,000. And so think about it, that's almost a 10-fold increase by, in 7 years. And so right now we're putting about 500 electric vehicles in a month, and that has to go to 5,000 vehicles per month. So you can understand that, if you don't work with a customer and you let electric vehicles adoption and charging unmanaged, it'll be a huge strain, to the electric utility in terms of both from a cost perspective and from a reliability perspective. So this is one of the things that I think the utilities can play a pivotal role in terms of working with the customers, understanding the needs of really what they want to do in terms of electrifying their fleet, how quickly they want to electrify their fleets, and really what technology and what services available for them to do that. And so SMUD, we actually always put our customers first. I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, Deepak, I think we talked about it before. We one of the few utility in the US that actually has a customer satisfaction metrics. Everything that we do, we have to have a 95% customer sat. And so when we launch our 2030 Clean Energy Division to try to get to absolute zero by 2030 and invest over $2 billion in building a transportation electrification, we took our plan out to the community, and we have over 90% acceptance rate or approval rating when we told them that this is the reason why we do this. It's not just about switching, fuel or going to electric vehicles, but it's really about clean air. It's really about making sure that no community left behind and making sure that we have a comprehensive strategy to actually bring the workforce that is needed to do that. So going back, to the big challenge, right? The big challenge that we have is that how do you work with a customer to, to predict how fast and how much electric vehicles coming online every month, every year, and for the next, basically 7 years forward. And how do you actually making sure that you understand what the wants and needs of the customers are? Because when you talk about fleet vehicles, right? I mean, we just work with PepsiCo, and they are one of the first ones to put in 21 Tesla 500 miles electric vehicles. So they put in, chargers that's up to 750 kW, 4 of those for a 3 megawatt load that just popped up. So can you imagine if we didn't actually work with them very early on, like almost 2 years ago, to facilitate this to happen? This will not happen. And it will also stress the grid to a way that that's probably not good for both the customer and SMUD. So one of the things that we're doing right now is really, making sure that when the customer think about electric vehicles, I want them to contact SMUD first. And this goes from residential customers to say, if you're buying electric vehicles, we can help you. We can help you make the decision. We can even help you decide what charger that you have. I mean, most customers don't need a 19.2 kW chargers, and certainly don't need 2 of them in the home, which is equivalent to having 10 air conditioners loaded at your house. And so how do you actually work with the customer and understand what their charging needs are? Like level 1, you can get 5 miles per hour and 8 hours, I'll give you 40 miles. And most people's round trip daily commute is about less than 20 miles. So maybe level 1 is actually okay. Maybe you want to go level 2, is a 6 kW charger or 9 kW charger is more appropriate for you for a home versus a 19 kW charger. Same thing we're working with our fleet customers. When you're talking about the kind of fleet and the operation characteristic of your fleet, how many hours of operation that you need, how many of the stuff that you need to do that. How many of those fleet you want to keep on the road at all times. So how do you actually work with them, to bring a technology in and bring managed charging in the areas, that the grid is not stressed. And so we've done, some pretty innovative programs, it's called Storage Share. So, Electrify America was going to put in EV charging, DC fast charging units in, and we were able to work with them. Instead of putting batteries where it's not needed in the grid, we actually work with them to put batteries where not only they can actually use it, we can actually use it. So it's kind of like a virtual storage piece. So I think one of the key challenges really, going back, to your question, Deepak, is making sure that the utility is in the center of the conversations when customer is putting electric vehicles, so that we can optimize their investments, optimize SMUD investments in a way that really is going to benefit both, but then do it in a way it's a holistic approach. Do it in a way that making sure no community left behind, that we actually put in the inclusive workforce development and inclusive economic development as this transition is happening. I know that's a little bit long for the answer, but I think it's really important, for the audience to hear that if you're electric utility right now, working with a customer or thinking about what you need to do for this clean technology transition or this electric vehicle adoption transition, you really need to put yourself in the forefront and making sure that you're there at the conversation at the very beginning when customers putting it on, and be that sound advisor for them. So that way you minimize grid investment, hopefully improve grid reliability if you can actually have access to those vehicles. I think we can talk a little bit about, the vehicle to grid and the vehicle to everything, the pilots that we're actually doing with GM and Ford. And so there's a lot of things happening right now, but I think the most key thing is that making sure you work with the customers, get in there early, understand what their needs are, and then, making sure that they understand really where currently you have capacity in your electric systems that you can accommodate charging immediately. And then if you don't have it, how long it's going to take for you to actually build that infrastructure to accommodate what the customer wants.
Well, I just love that. I don't want to overemphasize this, how important it is. And we see that globally, the energy providers and utilities are in the center, of all that change is happening. I know that we're talking about energy transformation, we're talking about eMobility, but energy utilities are in the center. And I love that when you made that point, it has to be customer focused, because customers are buying irrespective of their residential or fleet. They're buying the EV, they're buying the chargers, educating them proactively is the most important. We need to cover that part of that. Paul, always, these things keep coming. When we talk about, you already had that numbers. I love that you always have those great numbers in front of you, like 5,000 EVs coming in, and not only smart, when we talk in the context, but when we look to the state by state, maybe somewhere is a little bit slow, but 5 years from now, everybody will feel that very big pressure. So when we see that integrating, when all these electric vehicles are coming, do you see, and what your point of view is in integrating the energy vehicle charging infrastructure, irrespective of fleet or the residential, with the grid infrastructure is very crucial, and I know that you overemphasize that. Can you just please a little bit expand and share the knowledge about the importance of integration between these two, and why it has to be very successful?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? I think when you talk about electric vehicles, is a very interesting challenge to utility, because electric vehicles is not only a load, but it could also be a source for you, right? It could, because right now I have a Tesla Model 3. So certainly I can just, it's not surprising to think that, well, I can, in the times when the grid is stressed, I can plug my Tesla and pump 5 kW into it without any issues, because I have basically a 75 kilowatt hour, battery in my car. And so from that standpoint, so if you can think about the utilities working with the customers, right? Because they already invested in, in electric vehicles. They already invested in rooftop solar. They already invested, in storage. So if you can think about, well, from a grid reliability perspective, if you can actually educate the customer and work with them to come up with programs like charging rates, right? For example, right now, for commercial customers, we're working on a rate that will give them, when California have a lot of excess renewable energy, we'll give them a rate that you can actually charge your vehicle during that time. And instead of during the peak, right, or during when the grid is stressed. And also we have right now nighttime charging. We give our customers a penny half off their rates. So in the winter times is about is equivalent to maybe 95 cents per per gallon, versus in the summertime is about maybe $1.10, $1.15 a gallon. So this is actually working with customers to say, hey, because charging, fueling your electric vehicles takes a paradigm shift. Right now you go to a gas station anytime you need it, you go in and pump the gas. But when you think about getting electric vehicles, when you charge matters, and the utility can play a pivotal role in explaining to customers and coming with a program incentives for them to charge it when the grid has excess energy, and then discharge it when the grid is stressed. So that if you can actually solve that, if you tackle that problem, and that's why I'm so happy that SEW and smart eMobility is actually taking on this platform as a service, putting customer at the center, so that we can actually come up with rates and programs and charging infrastructures and charging, I'm going to say business models that actually fits, their business needs. And then we both could go for a win-win solution. I mean, it's like, for example, right now we're actually working with, Twin River School District is one of the first, they completely electrify their buses in terms of in a very low income area. And it's because we want to improve the air quality and get kids, excited about electric vehicles. And so right now we have a pilot testing the school buses charging back into the grid when we need it. So think about the possibility, right? When you're going to have 300,000 vehicles by 2030, and at any moment, a portion of it, half of it, 20% of it can charge back into the grid. It could be such a benefit to the grid if we can actually work with the customers to leverage their investments. But you need technologies like what the smart eMobility is doing, right? Platform as a service, so that they can actually very easily manage the charging with the electric utility, and then do it in a way that kind of save them money and is convenient for them. That's really the nut I think every utility is trying to crack right now, is that we did the analysis. Really going forward, a third of our load growth is going to come from electric vehicles. And if we don't manage the charging and discharging of the electric vehicles, is going to cost us twice as much money to upgrade our system, our distribution system, to do that. So we're working very, very hard right now with technology companies, like with putting smart panels in, right? I think what smart mobility is doing, and I'm putting managed charging at the individual car level, but also at the distribution system level, and then on the sub-transmission level, all the way to the transmission level, and then in a way that now you can actually take a look at all those, although I'm going to say moving resources, and collaborate, get them all into one, and actually get them to act as power plants when we need it, and then also get them to absorb the excess renewable energy, so that as we transition to this clean energy future, we can take advantage of all the overabundance right now of renewable energies where the sun is shining, and then actually dispatch those energy when the grid is stressed. And it could be a huge win-win for everyone. But I do think that one thing that I think we have talked about, and I think every utility need to think about, as any community go through this transition, how do you make sure no community is left behind? How do you making sure the workforce that is going to be needed to put in all those electric infrastructures is going to come from the people, from the community itself. And so just case in point, right? We have maybe about a couple thousand chargers right now. We need to get in 60,000 chargers by 2030. So where are you going to find the labor and resources, right, to put in all those chargers, to put in all those batteries, to put in all those rooftop solars and utility scale solars into the system? So I think this is one of the areas that I know that utilities, as you're going through this transition, you should really, really work with the cities, the counties, your local legislators, right, a lot of NGOs, and really think about, well, as you go through this transition, not only from the grid perspective, from a reliability perspective, but also from the customer perspective, but also from some of those underserved communities, how do you actually make this transition together?
Paul, I just love that, because you picked up the very important point, which we overemphasize, that the energy demand, which is actually through this whole e-mobility and the EV penetration is happening, is creating an infinite loop, of pretty much unpredictable behavior and how you manage it. And you made a very important point, and I just want to overemphasize that to even meet that predictable demand, you already estimated you require the 2x, of them pretty much if you have to go to improve the assets, in the grid side. And that is not possible. The time is against us. And to have that energy demand in the better control, customer have to be educated real time, end to end. At the same time, they have to connect to the grid with the end-to-end journeys we talk about, irrespective of that journeys cover the residential, fleet, commercial, any side. And we need to bring everybody in. We need a skills, we need information, we need a tech platform to do that. So if I put that, I know that we're going to have limited time, otherwise we will be more, me and you will be keep talking about that. I know that you overemphasize every time, Deepak, it's all about educating customer, is making sure they understand the value of definitely your great clean program, net zero program you're running, about the e-mobility and all. So how you feel like what you're doing, and I think it will be good to share with the broad audience too, how can the energy provider and energy utilities effectively can communicate these advantage of the EV, you talked about it, to educate them which EV they need to buy, when to charge and all in the real-time scenario, just share, that will be really good for our audience to know.
Yeah. That's a great question, Deepak, and I'm glad you asked it. So one of the things that the utilities are doing right now, like what SMUD is doing, we have put in an advanced distribution management system, right, and a demand and a distributed energy resource management system. So what it does is that it actually takes into account all the distributed resources that you have out there, from the amount of energy available for energy efficiency, the amount available from rooftop solar, the amount of energy available for batteries that is actually put on associated with the rooftop solar, and then also the hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles, that's both fleet and residential, that's available. So you need at real time. That's why I think what the platform play that that Smart Mobility is putting together is going to provide that customer 360, right? It's going to give the utility the intelligence to say, you have this thousands of, I'm going to say, distributed energy resources that's available. How do you know what's available, what the charge date is going to be, where they're located on the grid? Because on the distribution systems, where the location matters, and it matters a lot. So how do you actively manage and predict what's available, what's dispatchable, from both in terms of when the grid's in need, and also when you have excess energy on the grid, how do you send incentives, right, and signals to all those hundreds of thousands of vehicles out there to start charging, right? But do it in a way, well, I think I'm excited about what Smart eMobility is doing is that, have something that's actually convenient for the customer. That's why I think the platform is so important, so that they, as long as they understand really what they want to accomplish with the business objective, or their I think really, and their lifestyle, then you lead the software and the artificial intelligence to do the decision for them. And then you communicate that with the utility, so the utility can actually act accordingly. So this is really where I think, to answer your questions earlier about what is utilities role, what role do they play? I absolutely see the utilities play as that conductor, right? That universal conductor that can take everything the customer is actually putting in on this beyond the meter, from electric vehicles, rooftop solar, to batteries, to smart appliances, to energy efficiencies, and do it in a way that actually matches the customers, what they want from the lifestyle, and that meets their business model, but in a way that translated to an action, to intelligence to the electric utility into our DRMS systems, and then that hooks into our ADMS systems, so that we can actively manage and predict what the load is available. What the load is required, what resources available that we can actually deploy, and take that benefit all the way up to the power market. Because the utilities is the only natural player to say, it doesn't matter where the benefit comes from, right? If it comes from the customer side, it comes from the reducing our investment on distribution investments, or transmission investments, or our generation investments, or playing in the market itself. The SMUD, we're very fortunate. We actively trade in the California independent system operator market. We also trade with the Northwest. And so we can actually be that natural convener to say, what is the best way for us to operate all those thousands of EVs out there, managing the charging, discharging, plus the energy efficiency piece. What is the stress and what is the real-time look of the distribution systems, the transmission system, the power market itself, and then optimize among all those different players, and then make it worthwhile. I mean make it not worthwhile. I mean make it the best solutions for everybody that's involved, instead of actually each one are looking at the solution itself. So now you have the holistic solution to solve this problem or to advance this new revolution.
Love that, Paul. That's truly a very important point what you just mentioned. And I know that I learned a lot talking to you over this 10, 15 years. And I just feel that because you always have that very unique point of view on e-mobility. This is not today. Even like I should say 5 years, 6 years back, you start planning all that activity across the board, in the smart territory as a utility. What do you advise pretty much you want to give it, not only North America, but the global energy provider, because this will be definitely going across the board. This recording eventually will go in the hand of the energy providers, not only in North America and globally, who are just starting this journey, how they navigate the challenge and opportunity present to them, what advice you can give it to them, what they should do right now to get pretty much with the right plan to handle this major challenge coming to them, as a part of the e-mobility penetration all across.
Okay. So I think the first thing I would recommend utility do is really understand their system, their power system itself, where they have capacities, where they don't have capacities. So we are doing right now something called integrated distributed resource planning. This is really to understand really the existing capacity and capability of the existing grid that you have. And then on top of that, lay over to say, what is the propensity of electric vehicle adoptions across your service territory, and then understanding what the legislatures drive, all the legislation that's going to impact, the adoption, not only the adoption, but the speed and the magnitude of adoption, and then start really out there now, getting involved and talking to your customers, getting them, getting your key account advisors, getting your chief customer officers, start engaging the customers, and then engaging, companies like yours and engaging the OEMs to really understand where they're coming from in terms of what is their vision, what is their strategy, because each company has its own, right? I mean, in some are very aggressive. I think almost all major companies have a sustainability plan that they have and goals that they have. So you need to make sure you understand that. Like, for example, right, you have the Googles of the world, Amazons of the world that's completely electrifying their fleet and want to go to zero. And so you need to understand what is their adoption rate, what is their goal, and then you work that together to say, well, how can you work as a partner to make sure that you can actually help them achieve their goal, but in a way that is also beneficial, for the other folks. That's because remember, the electric utility represent all the customer, not just one segment. But it's for us to understand what is the propensity of adoption for essential customers, what programs and incentives available, what is it for our fleet customers, what is it for the OEMs, what is it for the regulators. The regulator's going to change the policies and make it more aggressive, right? And giving this, like most customers right now don't know we have a supply chain issue with transformers. So you can imagine if somebody just show up to your office and say, hey, I need to put an 8 megawatt load of DC fast charging, and I need it in 3 months, and they already signed contracts, and then utility, and so that really put utility in a very, I guess, awkward and not in an enviable position, because you are going to have to tell a customer, no, it's going to take us 2 years to get the transformer, right, or to give you service. So I think right now the best advice I give any utilities right now is get to know your customers, get to understand what their sustainability plan is, what is their plan to electrify their fleets, and then in addition to their fleet, what else are they doing? Because it's not just the fleets. You guys also understand the drive right now to get rid of, to do building electrification. So you got to actually work with the customer so that when they're upgrading the system this year for EVs and next year they're upgrading the buildings, you don't actually come back and say, oh, wait a minute, I wish I would have knew about it last year, that you're also doing all this building upgrades. So I think this is really where you need to have the conversation with the customers. Also help them understand that what is your challenges, where if you currently have capacity issue with your grid, making sure you have the conversation, but really there to listen to the customer and making it work. But then also making sure that you're very, very intentional to outreaching to underserved communities, making sure that they are part of the solution. What are you doing for them in terms of both building electrifications and transfer electrifications, and how do you actually educate them? So for example, we have put in what we call eMobility hubs in disadvantaged communities, that we work with them with the local organizations to put electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles that's available to use by the people from those neighborhoods to take the kids to to doctor's appointment, for job interviews, but then also get the workforce training piece in to actually how do you recruit people from the area to start installing battery chargers, right? EV chargers, and how do you actually making sure that the certification that you need, for them to do that, and how do you get the training program in place? How do you get the recruitment in place so that when we put in those 60,000 chargers, we have enough of a workforce, and the workforce isn't, that you're not flat-footed. So I know that's a lot for people to take in, but so anyone have interest in what we're doing in this area that's on the call right now, please reach out to me, reach out to my team. But there's a lot of things happening, and it's really exciting. It's super exciting, to see people excited about electric vehicles. And it's the first time people ride in one, and we have rising shares also in addition to that. And the first time they stepped on the accelerator and feel the no hesitation on it. It's just fun to drive. And so I think that's probably one of the most important things. Get to know your customers, get to know companies like like SEW, those people that we're working with, like OSI, like smart eMobility, making sure that you align yourself with companies that have the same vision as you do, and see what product and service they have, and how can you develop that strategic partnership to help them deliver to the products that the customers is looking for.
Well, I don't think so. People are not getting contagious from your energy coming wirelessly over this Zoom, and I love that, because I think that the most important thing is, which you always shared with me, and I keep hearing that across the globe, do it now. It is a time. We can't wait and watch. It is a reality, and I think this is really important. And I know that you covered a lot of area, and I know that you can say, Deepak, I can cover one more hours to talk about more depth, because eMobility is not a standalone eMobility, because sustainability, affordability, workforce, inclusiveness of every, community you're talking about, it has to be affordable, it has to have the net zero into it. You talk about solar, you talk about the storage, everything, all variability coming to the billions of variable, point, which is a customer, and how we make sure these billions of people who are eventually, doesn't matter 5 years from now, 20 years from now, will have the reality of EV, doesn't matter 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers, and so how you manage that. And this is what I love about this topic. And I feel very fortunate. Yeah, I'm the part of the industry, and I have always a great intelligence available through the team members and the people and the great leaders like you. And I just feel one thing I'm going to underscore, that you always said that, as honest energy utilities executives are to handle this reliability, sustainability to the core of the core. You asked me, Deepak, be honest as a technology company, do what we all try to do. And I'm being very fortunate, I think, ourselves and the team, being very honest, being core focused about this industry, bringing the customer, bringing the workforce in a connected platform to the billions of people. And I'm very, very happy about, this is a fortunate time. Next 5 years is going to be more exciting. We are covering 25 years of so-called innovation and revolution in next 5 years. So I am, there's nothing more excitement I can share. But thank you, Paul, for all the knowledge and the data points to share. I think all the audience on the call, I think, very excited about what you shared. And I know that this is what happened when me and Paul get onto these kind of forums. We get too much deep into that, because I just keep listening, Paul, and then going to it. So I know that we have 9 minutes left. If anybody have the questions, we'd love to take the Kevin, you and Dave, love to take the inputs. from the audience, if they have any questions.
Of course, and thank you both for a great conversation. You covered a lot in a very short time. So there are a few questions in the chat that I'd like to bring forward to you, and I think I can do it in a way that kind of combines a lot of them. So the key takeaway for me is obviously utilities are at the center of this transformation with a customer focus, and that not only is a customer education and awareness from the utility to the customer important, but also utility education of what the customer transportation needs are. We have to be both the utility electricity experts and now transportation experts at the same time. So specifically, I think to weave some of these questions together, are there specific tools or solutions that SMUD is using to address their fleet's needs? And is there a tool that you're using to become that trusted advisor for a fleet's journey towards electrification? And are there things that you've used to address fleets that have been more helpful, less helpful? If you can talk a little bit about that, I think, and how you're helping them not only electrify, but in a responsible way to manage that load. There's a lot in there, but see if you can do it.
Yeah, so Kevin, that's a great question. In fact, that we have launched a program. It's almost as a concierge service for fleet managers that they can actually contact SMUD, and we will work with them along with the consultant to really do their detailed analysis on really what they're trying to achieve. What the current state of their fleet are. What technology is available, what technology is available, what kind of charging infrastructure is available. What is the best way, in terms of looking at what the current existing let's say the grid infrastructure that we have, and we actually work through a very, very detailed analysis with them, and to work with them for different options about how they want to do it, what time frame they want to do it, and and then what are some of the challenges, right? I mean, in terms of what are the key decisions they need to make in terms of what is the duty cycle that they have, right? What is the existing capacity that they have on site? How big are the chargers? What is the realistic cost associated, which is really one of the big ones, is coming out with a good cost estimate on what they want to do, and then what is the rollout time frame that they're looking at. So I think that's really one of the key things, is that you need to develop that expertise, and if you don't have it, you need to contract with somebody to actually have that expertise, and making sure that the customer understands that those resources are available for them to use before they make the big plunk decisions. And that has worked extremely well for us. We've done that with Electrify America. I think you heard me earlier about having the storage share program, that we actually installed the batteries for the customer and gave them the same rate arbitrage benefit, but at a much lower cost. And then SMUD, we had to get the benefit of those batteries. And then we did the same thing when Tesla and Pepsi-Cola decided to bring their super duper 500 miles Tesla truck. And they brought 21 of those, and yeah, I mean, it's huge. They jumped to a 750 kW charger. And so we got to make sure that we put in the infrastructure to support them, because they want to charge their trucks by 45 minutes, 75% charge. And so that's really, that's important. And like, for example, for SMUD, right? I mean, we're electric utility. We've committed to go to absolutely, basically electrify all our fleets by 2030. If the technology is available. So we've been working with companies like Zeus to bring electric trucks, specifically designed for electric utilities. But then there's the heavy duty trucks, like the emergency trucks, and then the line trucks that you need 24-hour operation, like during storms. How would you actually solve those? And who do you need to develop strategic partnership with? And I think that's one thing I forgot to mention. Utility industries are usually risk averse, quite honestly. I mean, because we are responsible for running the grid, keeping the grid reliable. But when things are moving so fast, it's very, very important for you to making sure your customer understand what their challenges are, but then also make sure you pick vendors and OEMs and that share the same philosophy with you, so that sometimes you don't have, so you need to develop strategic partnerships with them.
That's great. And are you able to proactively market that fleet advisory services, or is it more of a passive, the fleet's coming to you?
Oh, no, it is a very aggressive. We actually, our key accounts go through all of them. In fact, we work with, even fueling depots way ahead of time to say, hey, if you're thinking about, and they are, fueling depots along the freeways are looking at, okay, well, we know this is coming. We know electric vehicles is coming. We know maybe hydrogen is coming, but how do you actually, and the customer want to be green. So how do you integrate, solar along with batteries, utility scale batteries, and, and how do you actually get that site ready for the future? Just like same challenge that we have. They don't know how big the adoption is going to be, how fast it's going to be. And so they're trying to determine what investment they need to take and how far future proof they want to do that investment. So they want to talk to utilities. So you have to take a proactive approach.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Respecting everyone's time, I know that we're coming up on the end of the hour, so I understand if folks need to leave, but Paul and Deepak, do you have a few minutes to stay on if anyone has any additional questions? If you don't, that's okay, but I just want to see if you had a few extra minutes, because it's such a great topic, and I know there's probably one or two more questions.
Yeah,
No, for sure.
I can stay till 12:05.
Fantastic.
I'll give you 5 minutes late to my next thing.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. So hopefully, Mariola and Brian, I helped shape your questions. So I'll open it up to anyone else if there are other questions for Paul and Deepak, specifically about this. Otherwise, well, let's see. Are there more questions out there? Anyone? What's? I might just schedule another meeting with you two just to a whole nother conversation, because there's lots to talk about.
Well, what it is that if people are interested in seeing, just go to the SMUD website. We have a whole section detailed for electric vehicles, for both commercial, residential, and it would list all the programs that we have from the charging piece to the concierge service. We even have the SMUD energy store that you can actually buy a charger, get the rebate, and then actually schedule an electrician to go install it in your house, all one-stop shop.
Perfect. I have one last question. We talked about no community left behind. Are there specific strategies on marketing EV solutions to disadvantaged communities that you found more effective than others?
Yeah. I think what it is that right now is the first phase is that for them to understand the benefit of electric vehicles. That's number one. Number two is for them to actually operate and see what's like. That's why we have the eMobility hubs. And then number three is really about making sure that you start recruiting, communicating with them the benefit of electric vehicles and the benefit of this clean energy transition and how it could actually help their communities. And this is why inclusive workforce development is so important. And this is why inclusive economic development, about attracting, this is one of the things that I know Deepak wanted me to talk a little bit about, earlier, was really about the California Mobility Center. This is a public-private partnership that we're creating in Sacramento to try to attract innovative companies and, basically anyone who really wants to advance e-mobility, from hardware, software, to policy, to business models, to come to Sacramento and, test them and work with us to actually make, to launch their initiative, their business models, their software to actually make it happen. So that's one of the things that we're actively working on. SMUD was a founding partner, and this is a public-private partnership to do that. So that's another piece that we can probably talk about in a future date.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. Respecting everyone's time. We're at the top of the hour, so thank you both for this conversation. I certainly took away a lot from it, and I hope others did as well. So we'll just round this out by mentioning, I can share this. I'm sorry that our next forum will be September 19th, and will feature Scott Barrios from Entergy. So thank you all again. Any questions, please send a note to Dave or myself, and we will leave it there, and have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you so much to Paul and Deepak for joining us. It's been a great conversation, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much, Deepak. Great seeing you again, and thank you, David. So hopefully this was informative for everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.